Hey everybody, how's it going? Matt here coming at you with another indicator video. And this time we're going to be talking about the Maverick trend lines. And so, as the name implies, we're not too creative. uh, that's one thing it implies. But the other thing the name implies is that this indicator is for finding trend lines in the market. Surprise, surprise. So, this is one that I find myself leaning on a lot to find out what the sort of overall trends are in the market and be able to kind of draw those trend lines a little bit for me. Now, I want to point out that it's not going to be 100% perfect. So they're just kind of use your own discretion a little bit there. But it overall, it does a fantastic job of finding the trend lines in the market and sort of pointing you in the right direction, no pun intended, as to what those trend lines are and what's kind of going on there. So um, I wanted to show you my chart just briefly here before we kind of get started with the indicator itself. In case you don't know, and I know this is probably a bit redundant for most of you, but a trend line is just this, right? It's just connecting swing lows together. So we can see here, markets will often move like this. Well, there will be a gap up and then a retracement down and then another gap up and then a retracement down, and it follows along this sort of straight line here. And we can draw that straight line and we can kind of predict into the future where would be a good place to buy. So obviously, where would we buy here? Well, we wouldn't necessarily know the first time, but the second time we'd kind of be able to connect the dots. And right there, and we could also say right there as well. And so, that's sort of the high level overview of what trend lines are. And I know, again, that's probably redundant for most of you, but just wanted to throw that out there. But it can be kind of hard, especially for beginners out there that are getting started trading. It can be kind of hard to see what those trend lines are sometimes. So we set out to build an indicator to do that for you. Again, here at Crypto Mavericks, the main thing that we're trying to do is do as much work as possible for you guys to give you, to just make your life a whole lot easier when it comes to actually you trading. Now, again, you're still going to have to sort of make those decisions yourself, whether you want to enter and exit trades and when you want to do that, so on and so forth. But we want to take as much of the work off you as possible and just make it really easy, just like this, okay, to be able to kind of decipher and see what's going on in the market. And so what we can see here is a bunch of green and red, again, vertical, or not vertical, but straight lines that are being drawn from one point in the market to the other. And the way that this algorithm does that is a little bit complicated, but it's essentially finding places. It's trying to detect places where it could draw a trend line. And the great thing about this indicator is it actually sort of auto adjusts based on new price data. So if the price was to go and let's say come back up to here somewhere, the trend line might actually change as you're kind of looking at it. And it's not likely to happen right at the second you're looking at the chart, but give it some time and it actually adjusts. So it's really cool how it does it, and it actually happens to be very accurate, at least from everything. And I've spent a lot of time using this indicator and building it and iterating on it, and it's really the most awesome way of finding trends automatically that I've ever come across. So anyway, that's that. Again, kind of basic there in terms of what it's doing, but there's a lot that goes into it under the hood to really make it work as good as it does. So I want to dive in a little bit deeper, spend the rest of this video kind of talking over some of the settings in the indicator and some of, we can see here we have dotted lines and solid lines, and then we have these triangles. I want to go over what all that means, but hopefully so far you're kind of up to speed on this and this all kind of makes sense to you. Again, all we're doing really here is just we're connecting points on a chart to draw a trend line, and the algorithm is doing that for us. So very cool there. Okay, so the first thing I think I want to make mention to is these dotted lines and these straight and these solid lines. So again, obviously it's just connecting two dots on a chart. So one dot, or I shouldn't say dot, but point rather. So one point being there and then one point being there. It's connecting those 2 points together to try to form a trend line, and then it is extending that trend line with that dotted line that you see there. So I'm going to zoom in here. So this is the dotted line, this is the solid line, and the dotted line is just an extension of the solid line. And we can actually adjust how long we want that. So by default, it's 5. I actually like to put it to a lower number sometimes than 5. And then it'll actually sort of shrink the length of that extension, which I think kind of just makes for a cleaner, easier to read chart. But you guys play around with it, see what sort of fits your boat. You can also extend it forever, so you can put 100 here, and then it'll just keep showing as far as the chart can go. Not sure that that's necessary, but just FYI. The other thing that I want to mention here is these red triangles and these green triangles. So the red triangles are a representation of when price has broken below an uptrend line. So we can see here we have this green dotted line, and this is exactly where price has broken below that green dotted line. Hopefully that makes sense. So again, price is all this area here. Here, let me grab this again. This entire area here, price is staying above that green uptrend line. This entire area here. And then right here, that's when it breaks it. And then that's when we get that red arrow. And we can also receive alerts, which is a really great feature about this indicator. We can receive alerts for when the trend line is broken up or down, and when it's just broken in general. So that's what the red triangle is for, and then the green triangle is obviously the exact opposite of that. So it's when the price is actually broken above a downtrend line. And there's a setting in here while we're on this topic I want to go ahead and jump right in and talk about, which is this option here. And when you first read this, it might be kind of confusing. I know I'm the one that wrote it, and it's still kind of confusing to me. But basically what it's saying is to only display green arrows when the price breaks a downtrend line. Okay, so that's the current the current the current setting that we have for this indicator. So that is the default setting. Only display green arrow when price breaks that. So if we uncheck this, what it'll actually do is it will display a green arrow when the price breaks an uptrend line as well as a downtrend line. So both lines. And let me kind of talk about the high level overview of this for a second. Generally speaking, we only really care when price has broken above a downtrend line or when it's broken below an uptrend line. We don't really care, again, generally speaking here, when price has actually broken above an uptrend line, because it was already in an uptrend, so we don't really necessarily care to see that. But I'm going to go ahead and uncheck this anyway, and then we can actually see that we should get more arrows on our chart, especially over here. I think if we look at that. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this, to be honest, because I don't think it's that big of a deal. But you can kind of play around with that. If you do want to receive alerts or red and green arrows for any time a trend line is broken, whether it's a downtrend or an uptrend, you have that option available. I just want you to be aware of that. But again, it's not something that I'm too concerned about for me, and I don't think it really matters too much probably for you either. And I know I'm kind of jumping around here, and this will all be laid out verbally or in text rather. So if you want to go order by, in this sort of order here, then feel free to. But the look back window is if I want to adjust essentially, I don't know if this is the right word exactly, but kind of like how like large or how wide of trend lines I want to show. So if I want to show like kind of like a smaller trend line, like what's going on like right in here, I can put a smaller number here, and then it's actually going to show me a lot more sort of narrower version, I guess you could say, of what's going on here. And this is a bit too clustered for me. I wouldn't necessarily put 10, other than just to, if you're just confused about what the trend line is and you want to see. But there's going to be a bunch of trend lines here, and that could get confusing. So I wouldn't put a 10, just only to sort of see what the trend lines could be. Again, by default, it is 30. But if I wanted to kind of look more of a wider view, maybe like the overall, like what are the large trend lines in the market, I could put something like 100. Um, and that's kind of that. Uh, okay, actually another setting here that I want to talk about, and I was a little bit confused for a second why there's so many green arrows here, and you might have been as well. Um, so let's see here. I think that this has to do with this setting. It should. Okay, I might have to get back to you guys on that. But this, okay, let's go back to our defaults. When in doubt, go to defaults. That's name of the game there. But this setting right here, number of trend line breaks to show. Um, right now, it's I think by default it's just one, which makes sense, right? We only really care about the first time a trend line is broken, but you can adjust this. So let's see what one looks like. This is what one looks like, and then if we want to see, let's say I want to see 10 times when a trend line is broken. I can do that, and then I'm going to get a bunch more, right? So this is the trend line is being broken 10 times here, maybe up to 10. And in reality, it's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times that it's broken. That again, this downtrend line. Now, if we wanted to say, I want to say 10 trend lines or 10 times the trend line is broken, and I want both directions, then we're going to get a bunch of alerts in here. And that's really not the point of this, right? I mean, the point of this indicator is we want the big directional moves in the market. So that's why we only put one, and that's why we keep this checked. And that's that. I think that's pretty much the meat of it here. There's one other thing that I want to make mention to, but I did want to just sort of point out real quick. This is a great tool because we can see here, it does do a pretty good job of giving us these sort of big directional moves. By no means am I saying that this is what you want to use. Like when you get a green triangle, that means you want to enter in a long position. Don't mistake me for, or don't mistake this for that. That's not what that means. It just means that be aware of a potential bullish movement because it's broken a downtrend line, or be aware of a potential downtrend because it's broken an uptrend line. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. So the last thing here that I'm gonna talk about, and then I'll cut you guys loose, is the adaptive trend line. So this is a cool feature, and honestly one that I don't know about you guys and how you guys plan on using this indicator. I thought that I don't I I'm not going to argue for wanting to use adoptive trend lines with the um, with this other indicator. I kind of, to be honest with you, just sort of threw it in here because I didn't feel like it was enough of an indicator to be its own indicator. However, you could use these two indicators together. I actually think that you should use these two indicators together, but not. I don't necessarily use them at the same time, or it's just sort of up to you. And I kind of wanted to preface me talking about this particular one with saying that because what we've tried to do here with all of these indicators is combine the most useful features together and make it one like really cohesive indicator that's simple and easy to use and just makes sense and goes together really well, like peanut butter and jelly. I wouldn't necessarily say that is the case for this one, although it may be. You may be, hey Matt, I disagree. I love using the adoptive trend lines with the regular trend lines. Hey, go for it. I'm just sort of telling you how I see it from my angle, but you know, that's another story. Anyway, forget. I'm going to digress here, and so I'm going to remove everything from the other indicator. I'm going to only show these adoptive trend lines, and I didn't actually need to uncheck these. All I need to do is actually uncheck the show regular trend lines because we don't want those to be shown for right now. And I want to check show adoptive trend lines, and this is just a nice way of seeing this kind of adoptive trend line, which is actually very useful. So, this is another thing that I'll use quite frequently. Right now we're in a downtrend, so be careful entering into a long position right now. Something to be aware of, and and take into consideration when you guys are trading. So again, I really do like these sort of adaptive trend lines because we can see here it catches this sort of this trend line really well. In fact, probably better than the regular trend lines did. Although at that time, at that particular time in the market, this green trend line was different. I can tell you that because um, it would not have been connected. Like if we were looking, this hopefully this doesn't confuse you guys, but if we were looking at this point in the market, right, this point going backwards, none of this stuff in this zone has happened yet. This trend line here that we're seeing would have to look different because right now it's connecting from here to here, right? But if we don't even have this yet, if this hasn't happened yet, this is into the future. We can't predict the future. So this green trend line at this time, this particular time, and if you look at the bottom, the date there, April, it would be April 1st, or yeah, sorry, April 1st at 1 o'clock. Um, I would bet that this trend line was maybe connecting to here, and then it was maybe a bit more accurate of a trend line there. So anyway, just kind of a FYI there. But other than that, guys, I think that's it in terms of the main points that I wanted to talk about with this indicator. Again, just look out for these red triangles. It's a good indication that there could be a downtrend that's going to be happening soon, or is maybe already underway. And then you'll also get a pink candle instead of a red candle. And then for the green ones, you'll get a lighter green candle instead of the normal sort of green there. But that's that, guys. Not too bad, not too difficult in terms of ease of use with this indicator. I don't know, I'd maybe rate it like a um, 1 being the easiest, 10 being the hardest. I'd maybe rate it like a 4. Um, that's probably a terrible analysis. But anyway, uh, that's that. And I don't want to make this video any longer than it has to be. So take care, guys. Have a great rest of your day, week, month, etc. And happy trading.